So now we need to have the image that we need to use on the home page as such. And for this, we can actually take a live screenshot of the application. Let's do that. Before we do that, let me just add some few more links just to make it a bit legit. You can do the same thing. And let me add one more, something like this. Doesn't have to be an actual link, just to kind of convey the message. And let's also change the total number of clicks. We don't really want to show 0 for all 3 of them. And instead of changing it in the document, for the time being, we can just use the div tool to kind of do it in such a way. Let me just add something like this. And whoops. The same thing for this one. Well, actually, we are not formatting the links. Like we can do that as well, adding the comma just to make it look a bit nice, but let's just keep it the way that it is. So now we can actually take a screenshot. So if you're on Mac, you can use the hotkey of Command, Shift and 4. If you're on Windows, you can use the print screen, but then you'll have to use, I guess, the MS Paint in order to kind of paste that image and to save it. Or else you can use a software which is actually Lightshot. It's pretty nice. It's available for both Mac and Windows, and it's pretty small. So you do have the options. Anyway, now that we have the screenshot, we actually need to like design it as a mock-up. As you can see, something like this to make it seem pretty nice. So for that, there's actually an application called Skrily which does that. We just need to upload the image, and actually I can do that. So once we select the image, it actually creates a mockup which looks nice. Let me just change the settings. I think adding it in such a way, and well, actually this looks nice. Let's reduce the padding because we don't want that. And is there any option to add the shadow? Okay, what is this? Nope. Yep, there is. Okay, so that's actually looking nice. Now we could have used, like initially I was thinking of using CSS to add the shadow, but I think this looks fine the way that it is. So we will be using this thing. And now we just need to download the image as such. And within our project over here, within the public folder, we will be creating one more folder, naming it as assets, within which we can also create another one with the name of images. But I think just for this image, we can actually use the same thing. Like we can move the image to this folder. So over here, let me just shift it. Well, actually that's not the right image. There it is. Wait a second. Okay, so that's the image that we want to use on the home page. So now let's start with the home page, and for that let's log out. So we need to make it look like this. So let's do that. The first thing that we will be working on is the upper part, which is the navbar as such, where we need to display the logo, the text and the button for the login sign up thing. So let's do that within the wait a second, the home component, the home page. Oops. Currently we have the 2 text fields and the 2 buttons. Let's just shift this entire thing at the bottom and let's just comment this entire thing for the time being. Eventually we will be shifting this thing into a modal, but before that let's construct the structure. So we need to have a solid background for the entire screen. So for that, we can wrap the entire thing inside of a box component from the material UI library, and on this box we can add in the height of 100 vh, which means 100 view height, which is going to take the entire, which is the same thing as the height of the device that the user is currently on. So it's going to take in the entire thing. And for the color we will be using this thing. So you can pause the video and copy the same thing, this hex code. Now on the box component, let's add in bg color for the background color, and let's set it to be this. Then we can also change the text color by using the color property of white. And within this, we will be adding another box component for the upper part, which includes the logo and the button. So let's add in the typography. And for the text, it is supposed to be small. Let's do that. You can enter anything of your own. If you wish to change the name and to deploy this application as something else. Now for the variant, we can use h4. For the typography, well, not typography, we need to add in the button, which is login sign up, something like this. And I think that's it. If we save it and if we take a look, let's see. So yep, we do have the background, which is looking nice, and we do have the logo and the button. Now we obviously want to align them in the same axis. So for that, on the internal box, which is wrapping these two, we will be setting the display to be of flex, the align items to be of center, just so that they are aligned in the center in the cross axis, and the justify content to be of space between as such. So if we do that, they should be aligned in the same axis, and that's looking fine. We can obviously add a bit of padding around the corners to make it look a bit nice. And for that, on the box component, which is wrapping the entire thing, let's add padding on all the sides with just P. And I think we can add about 2, which would be 16 pixels. And I think that should be enough. Well, that's looking nice. And actually we have a scroll bar, as you can see. So I think it's because of the padding that we are adding, because over here we are adding the view height. We are setting the height to be of 100%, sorry, not 100%, the 100 view height. And at the same time, we are also adding the padding, which is kind of increasing the height. So for this, we can actually set the box sizing to be of border box, which means that the padding should be inclusive of the size that we specify. If we do that, it should fix the issue, and that's looking fine. The other thing is that the button we need to fix in the color. So it seems like the color that we are adding on this box, the color of white, it's working for the typography, but it's not working for the button. So for that, we can pass in the color. But the thing is that the button component, it takes theme colors. In this case, it takes the primary and the secondary. But what we can do is we can set it to be of inherit, which means that it will use whatever color is floating within the scope. And as this button is placed within this box, it's going to use the same white color. So if we do that, let's see, and that's looking pretty nice. Now I think we can work on this part. So for this, we need to have a layout, a grid container with 2 grid items. Let's do that over here next to the box, but within the main one, we will be adding in a grid container within which we will be adding 2 grid items, and both of them should be taking half of the available space, at least for the medium sized. For the smartphones, we can give both the grid items to take in the entire space, but well, actually for the small devices, I'm kind of thinking to hide the image. Anyway, we will get to that. For the time being, let's give them 6 columns each on the medium breakpoint. And well, actually we can set it to be on the small breakpoint, which is 1 level below the medium, and below the small we have excess, the smallest one. So now within the first grid item, we can add in a box component, within which we need to add in this content that we have over here, which means two typography and a button, which actually looks way too big. So let's do that. Let's add in the typography. For the variant, it has to be big, so I think H3 should look nice. For the text, you can copy the same thing, or you can type in something of your own, doesn't matter. Let's add in another typography. We can skip the variant part because the default is body 1, which actually looks nice for such sort of text. Let's copy this thing, and below this we need to add in the button, and for that the text has to be get started. Well, actually, let's see, what do we have by far? We have the text, the two text and the button. So the first thing is we want to align the this thing, in fact the grid container, to be in the center. So for that, wait a second, let me just use the dev tools in order to experiment. So this is the main box within which we have these two. That's fine. And what we can do is, so for this, I think we can wrap the grid container inside of a box of its own. The grid container which has the two grid items, we can wrap it inside of a box. Let's do that first. And using the dev tools, we can play around with this thing. So this is the first box, which is the upper part, which includes the logo and the button. And this is the second part, which is containing the grid container. So for this, we can actually, what should we do? So we can actually set the flex grow of 1, which will make it, well, that didn't work. And for it to work, we actually have to set the display of the main box component. This thing, the main wrapper, we need to set the display of it to be flex. Let's do that first. And let's change the flex direction to be of column, so that they sit on top of each other in the vertical axis. And then, as we have set the flex grow of the box component, the second child within this box, we can actually set the display of it to be flex as well. And let's set the align items to be of center, and that's looking nice. I think that's looking nice. It is aligned in the center, and yep, I think that will do. Let's fix a few things. Well, actually, we need to add in the stylings, which we just did. And let me just cross check. So on the main box, we have to set the display to be of flex and the flex direction to be of column. So let's do that first. Over here, let's set it to be flex and the flex direction to be column. Then on the internal box, which is wrapping the grid container, which is this thing, we need to set the flex grow of 1, so that it kind of takes the entire available space, and the display of flex, well, actually 1 minute, if we remove this thing, what if we set the flex direction to be of column? Anyway, let's just use the same thing. So actually this thing should be next to it. And then the align items, which would be the cross axis. Like, in order to align the items in the cross axis, we need to set it to be of center. So if we do that, and if I refresh, we should be having the same thing. So that's fine. Now I think we can add a bit of spacing between these three, and for that we can wrap the middle typography, this thing, inside of a box, just so that we can use the margin in the y-axis of about 2, which would be 16 pixels, and that's looking fine. In order to style the button, there are many different ways, and in fact, wait a second, if we change the variant to be of contained, Well, actually that's looking nice. We can remove the shadow by using the disable elevation. And now I think we just need to change the text color. So for that, we can use the inline stylings. For like right now we kind of need to make it work. So it doesn't matter what approach we follow, and the color has to be the same. So let's use this thing over here as the color, the hex code, and that's looking fine. We can actually increase the size of it using the size prop, and we can set it to be large, and I think that's looking decent. That's looking fine. The other thing is we can actually increase the font weight as what we have over here. So let me just see what font weights are we importing. We are importing the Poppins font, and we are importing the 400 and 600. So what we can do is we have set the typography, this thing, to be variant of H3. So let's get to the theme. Within the typography, actually we need to do the same thing with the H3. The same thing that we did for the H4, we need to do with the H3 to set the font weight to be of 600. So if we do that, well, that's looking nice. So now we just need to place the image. Let's do that.